Thanks for tuning in to another episode of We Are Extension, a podcast hosted by K-State Extension, Douglas County. Throughout our episodes, we'll showcase all aspects of our work. This week, we're focusing on our community development program. We're proud to engage this community in all of our program areas, and this week, we're excited to share our efforts in building community capacity. Thanks for being here with us. We're glad you're interested. Now let's get started. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm excited this week for our hosts who are from a wonderful organization here in Douglas County, Kansas, the Douglas County Community Foundation. So today we have with us Lori Sellers Trenholm, who's the Director of Community Investment, and Heather Hoy, who is the Director of Philanthropy and Community Relations. Today we're going to dive in on what it means to build community capacity, and specifically we're going to hone in on some of the work that we've been doing at the Extension Office here with our partners at the Douglas County Community Foundation. So first, maybe just say hi to everyone.
Thank you, Marlin. Thank you for having us here today. We're delighted to be here. Thank you for all the great work that you do in our community.
Well, thanks.
Hi, Marlin. This is Heather. It's just really great to be here. Lori and I were talking about how much Extension actually does in the community, and we're just pretty excited that we get to be a small part of it. So thank you for having us today so we can talk more about the community programming that you're doing.
Yeah, and the work that you're doing. So just maybe for listeners who don't know what a community foundation is, what should we know? What do community foundations do for a community?
Well, this is Lori. Community foundations are very unique organizations. They are a 501c3 public charity, but we are a little bit different than when you think about a nonprofit organization, what you usually think of as a nonprofit organization. We don't provide direct services to individuals. Instead, we're like a charitable bank. Individuals, families, businesses, organizations open up charitable funds with us, and those funds can go out as grants, mostly to Douglas County, but they can go out nationally as well. And so we have different grant programs and accept donations. And because we are a public charity, the donations that come in are tax deductible for the individuals making those donations. Heather, you want to add some?
I would just say, so as a home for charitable giving for many people, people's charitable checkbooks, the Douglas County Community Foundation has been functioning since 2000. So we're celebrating our 25th anniversary this year.
Happy birthday.
Thank you so much. And I did bring a few stats about us. In our 25 years, we have opened 490 funds. Those are donor advised funds, special interest funds, organization funds, scholarship funds, so all kinds of different types of ways to give. We have done over $78 million in grants in our 25 years. And we have around $117 million in assets that's audited as of 2024. We have had 6,347 donors and given out to 1,271 grantees, including Douglas County Extension.
Amazing.
Yes.
So do you have a sense of what the lay of the landscape is across the state of Kansas about community foundations? Like, is there a way for you all to work together? Or do you have a sense of how many community foundations there are? Or are we just kind of a unicorn here in Douglas County having you?
Actually, this is Heather. I am the secretary of the Kansas Association of Community Foundations. So we actually have 116 community foundations across the state, I believe. And Kansas is a record holder in that we have the most community foundations of any state except Indiana, I believe.
That's more than one foundation per county. That's impressive.
Yes. And there are tiny counties with more than one foundation, interestingly enough. So yes, it is a broad network. We hold an annual conference here that ends up being an international conference in Wichita, Kansas. The Kansas Association of Community Foundations puts that on. And so we are a bit of a hub here in Kansas for community foundations.
Well, that's amazing. So how many people does it take to run your organization? How many folks are there over there?
Well, there are 4 of us.
It probably takes 10 people.
Yeah. There are only 4 of us. We are small but mighty. That's kind of how we describe ourselves. We have our executive director, Chip Blazer, and then Heather and myself, and our administrative officer, Miranda Oakes. So we are quite busy over there. Talking about the number of community foundations in the state of Kansas, there's been a large growth over the last decade or so. The Kansas Health Foundation had a strategic goal. They wanted to invest in the state of Kansas. They recognized the unique and the value that community foundations can provide. And so they, and along with some other of the private foundations, started those types, especially in small rural communities, with some seed money to get those foundations going up and running so that they could provide services and community improvement and health and wellness, all those important things that are important to our communities.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned health and wellness because the Douglas County Community Foundation was instrumental in pulling down some Kansas Health Foundation funds a long time ago to help start a coalition here in Douglas County called Live Well. So Live Well Douglas County now is housed in this office, as you well know.
Yep.
And, I think that's just a testament to what Heather was saying earlier about the value of the relationship, the collaboration, and just having sort of a tight-knit network here. I think there's one other thing that I want to kind of clue into that Heather said, because you were talking about the different kinds of funds that you have. I don't remember what the number of funds that you have was, but you said there's donor-advised funds and there's organizational funds, and maybe there was a third one too.
Field of interest funds, scholarship funds.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So whenever I think about the Community Foundation, of course, I'm coming at it from an organizational standpoint, so it's really easy for me to have, I guess, just to make that connection. So I can imagine that you all probably have your eye on organizations across the county.
Right.
But it sounds like you also have your eye on folks who have, I think the term was donation checkbook. So I think where I'm really interested today and kind of diving in is on the organization side. I know that you're incredibly supportive of the Live Well Coalition here in Douglas County. You're a large part of the reason why that coalition has an executive director and is able to do the work that it does. And actually, I think maybe one of the most important pieces of that is the funds that you provide to us to employ that person also gets leveraged for us to be able to go, amplify that in a lot of different ways. I imagine that's probably fairly typical, but I think I'm kind of also interested in making sure that we touch on kind of let's twist this conversation to make sure we're looking at like what is the sort of nonprofit or non-governmental organization landscape here in Douglas County. What I imagine folks might be approaching you about money, but maybe they're demonstrating other needs. So I'm just kind of curious, what do you see across the county as it relates to social services, the needs of organizations that maybe you have a relationship with? Are there themes? Are there things that have emerged in recent years?
Well, I would say, we've experienced some growth in the nonprofit sector, as in adding more nonprofits to Douglas County. And a lot of that, I think, coincided with the pandemic. The needs were already high, as we know, especially around social services or human services. We're hearing a lot about our mental health needs in our community. We just had the community health plan improvement come out, and so we're all really focused on all of the things that are interconnected with the community health plan, including homelessness and substance abuse and equal, equitable access to quality healthcare services. So those kinds of things are bubbling up all of the time.
Interesting.
Well, and I think the simplest answer is that they need money. That's probably the
if
easiest.
There's a theme.
If there's a theme, it would be that the nonprofit organizations need money. Need in the community certainly is not decreasing. And as many challenges are, most of the ones we face are adaptive. If the technical answer were that if we gave every agency $1 million, they could solve every problem we have, life would be actually a lot better. I bet we could get people to write checks for that. Unfortunately, the issues in our community are ongoing, and we do have to continue to address them. So what we see from the agencies is they have small staffs like we do, and they need to figure out how to communicate with donors so that donors understand local need and that donors can be passionate about the needs in their own community and support them.
So I imagine you probably have a lot of organizational funds at the Community Foundation.
Right.
Just kind of curious, like, if a organization that you don't have a fund with, or that doesn't have a fund with you, calls you up or finds their way into your office, like, what's the conversation? How does that go? Or maybe that's a question that's really like, why would they get in touch with you, or what's the help that you could provide?
Well, because the Community Foundation serves Douglas County, so we work very hard in just Douglas County. So that means that we're really hyper-local. It makes it easier for us to be really connected and build relationships one-on-one with our nonprofit partners. So that is, depending on another community that might serve 25 counties, that immediately gives us a little bit more of an easier time to build relationships. So the conversation around opening an organization fund with the Community Foundation happens pretty frequently, and it's really easy. We've tried to reduce all the barriers that we possibly can. We have some very small grassroots organizations, and we don't require big deposit to open a fund with us.
I would just say, hearkening back to our founding, our founder, Tinsey Oldfather, made it possible that we do not have to go out and do a lot of fundraising for our operating costs. We are so blessed by her as a founder. Many community foundations do not have that benefit that we have. So we are able to work with organizations and say, you can come in at zero entry and have an organization fund with us.
And so are those conversations that usually are sort of guided towards like an endowment fund, like something that can grow in size and then through time start to fund the organization?
Yes, right. We should clarify, we're not a bank. And so most definitely people that open funds with us, it should be a reserve fund or kind of a rainy day fund, not a day-to-day operating fund. That's not what we're interested in working with organizations on. However, we will do capital campaigns and short-term kind of projects that there's a funding goal and they're really trying to have a centralized place to donate. Not all agencies have a donor platform that makes it really easy to accept donations when they're doing something like this. So we have the ability to provide that kind of back office support in those situations. There are some benefits on having a fund with us. We run several grant programs, and I'll let Lori talk about the majority of them. But one program we have is called Giving for Good, and it is a year-end crowdfunding program where the organizations, only the ones that have funds with us, can submit a project proposal for up to $5,000. And for every dollar in donations that goes to that project, we have donors that match with endowed gifts into their funds at DCCF. So if somebody raises $5,000, they're going to get a $2,500 match gift into their organization fund. And that has generated $1.3 million since that program started 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So that is a benefit that we only offer to organizations that have funds with us, as well as some training opportunities.
Well, I think this is really kind of touching a little bit on why maybe I think our organizations are as complementary as they are, because in my work as a community development agent here, I'm working with organizations not necessarily on the financial side, but on the organizational side. And so one of the collaborations we've had in recent years was working with boards, just to equip board members or budding board members in our community. Because if we have a lot of community organizations that require boards, then we also need a lot of board members.
We do.
So maybe a little bit of that was hopeful to sort of create a pipeline of new board members. Maybe, erase any stigma about board service that might exist, but also just to literally tool up the citizens of the county so that they could be of better service to their communities, or to specifically the passion that they may have. So if they find an organization that aligns with them, with their interests or ideologically, they may be better situated to do good for that board, because a lot of the organizations that we have, you said, are very small, just like yours. And so what better way to complement that than with a very highly skilled set of board members? So I think if you're working with organizations and helping them secure the funding that they need in order to be successful, and we're maybe working on the sort of leadership side or strategic planning side, which is some of the work that I've done with a handful of community organizations here, I think together we're making a better Douglas County.
We are. We're very complementary to each other.
So I do want to maybe just kind of let everybody know what we've got baking in the oven right now.
Yeah.
Are you guys excited about this?
Very.
Super excited. We are having a workshop, and we're calling it the Making the Ask workshop. And it is around that one key component that we discussed that nonprofits need, which is money.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're finding is a lot of these nonprofit organizations, again, small staffs, might only be an executive director and a finance person, no development person. There's people working, program staff doing the direct service to the individuals in the community that they serve, but they're just not getting out there and speaking directly with community members and saying, we are doing the most amazing work in this community. You want to be a part of it. You should give us some money. So we are going to have a 5-hour workshop that will include lunch for organizations that have funds with the Douglas County Community Foundation. This is the kickoff for our 2025 Giving for Good projects. And we are going to have some time for the organizations to practice through what we're sort of calling donor speed dating. They're going to be able to formulate a plan, think a little bit about what they need to be doing on a day-to-day basis to make sure that the programs and projects and the wonderful citizens of Douglas County that they serve are being served. And to do that, they're going to be practicing asking for money.
Well, I was going to ask you, because you said maybe one of the things that's holding people back is that they're not making the ask. So why do you think that might be?
You know, it could be a number of reasons. Sometimes they just need practice and to build up confidence that it's really not as scary to ask and tell your story, because that's really one of the most important things about getting donations and is sharing your nonprofit story. What would the community be like if you were not here? And that can be very inspirational. So we want to build up the confidence, give them, the nonprofits in attendance, an opportunity to really get some great feedback from real donors and do some role playing around that.
I think you discussed the wonderful work you all have done with board training. I also think it's important that board members understand that they have a major fiduciary responsibility to any organization when they agree to be on a board. So part of what we also want to encourage is each organization will be bringing a board member with them. And we really want to impart on all boards, as you do when you do your training, that they need to be part of the ask. They need to be part of that Making the Ask project. Even if it's just, I called my 10 best friends and told him to come say hello to the executive director. I'm having coffee at my house and I'm sorry, but you're going to listen to what's going on in my world with the board that I'm on. I really believe in it and I want you to hear from the staff. So it's not always easy to bring individuals into the offices of some of these organizations. They're working with very sensitive populations, very vulnerable populations. And you can't just trot out people's clients and say, oh, you know, this person deserves your support. It really has to be stories coming from the staff, board members volunteering for events and for projects and programs that they can within those organizations, learning more about the organization. And the board work is getting the word out about that organization and encouraging their friends, family, community members to support that work by writing a check or giving through their donor advice fund at the Douglas County Community Foundation.
Yeah, well, we would agree, right? I feel like fundraising is very much a board function. And I do think that, you know, well, that's obvious for an organization that doesn't have staff, right? But I think an organization that has staff, having staff is often a cop-out for board members to own a part of that responsibility. And so I agree wholeheartedly in making sure that it's not just a staff member who's attending a workshop where they're building skill and gaining confidence, as you said, Lori, so that, you know, several people within the organization not only there to learn and actually get that experience, but then can tote that back to the larger board. Seems like a wonderful thing to do. And you know what? I feel like you said this is the launch of the Giving for Good campaign coming up at the end of the year. The way I'm looking at it is it's the launch of, I think, a whole lot of other things we can do together to strengthen communities, those organizations across Douglas County.
Yeah,
certainly.
Yeah, I mean, our mission is to improve the lives of Douglas County citizens through charitable action. And so we want to make the superheroes out of the organizations so that they can make action happen with donors across the community and improve the lives of so many in our community who need support.
And what I know of nonprofits here in Douglas County, making superheroes out of them shouldn't be that hard.
They've all got their capes. Yeah. They just need to learn to use their superpowers.
Well, I just want to say thanks for joining me today. It's been lovely to see you here at the Extension office. office, but also appreciate your time carving out some time to come tell your story. And I look forward to our continued collaboration.
We do too. Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Marlin.
Thank you for listening to K-State Extension Douglas County's podcast. We hope you tune in again for not only more research-based information and resources you can trust, but also good conversation. Until next time.